But we are waiting for an espresso, are we?
Yeah, that would be good, just to sort of charge me up before we go.
You're coming.
Actually, I might just take my tie. Matthew, I might just take my tie off, actually.
First of all, thank you for taking that tie off, because I was really... I mean, have you still been the Prime Minister? I would, of course, wear a tie, but not being the Prime Minister, I thought it was a bit more relaxed, so thank you so much.
If I could still be the Prime Minister, I'd still be wearing them properly. So,
probably.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the last few years a bit later, but I'll, of course, I'd want to avoid Iraq for as long as I can.
Right.
Which many would say you should have done as well. But let's start from the beginning. When you were elected Prime Minister in 1997, it was by a landslide, and you had approval ratings like a pop star. Were you able to appreciate that feeling, or did you also realize that you were sort of doomed to disappoint someday?
Yeah, because look, the way politics works is this, particularly if you come in after a long period of the other side in power. And we'd been in opposition 18 years. Right? We lost 4 elections in a row. So I came in this huge wave of expectation. My principal feeling at the time of the election was fear, because I knew it couldn't last, and I knew it wouldn't last.
And you write a bit about the fear you felt, and I wonder, how can one see that you are afraid? What are the signs?
Well, you try and eliminate the signs, because you mustn't, look, being a politician's part being a believer, part being an actor, and you've got to be able to go out there and put your good face on, even if you're feeling like, lousy and all the rest of it. And it doesn't matter if you just had a row with the wife or the kids or whatever it is, you've got to go out there and you've got to perform.
Is fear something that you always had to hide, or is it something that you could share with other leaders? I mean, do leaders in general feel fear from time to time?
They don't. They tend not to share that with each other. But look, in today's world, you want to know all about your politicians. You want to know all about their private life, everything they're up to. There's nothing that isn't subject to scrutiny. Right, well, here's what it's like being an ordinary human being in extraordinary circumstances. But they are extraordinary circumstances, and you are an ordinary human being. And, sometimes it looks like politicians come from Mars. I mean, they don't. We're just ordinary people, right? We're just like you, anyone here. But we're put in this position to take really difficult decisions with an immense amount of responsibility on your shoulders. And here's the thing, it's really tough. Now, it's a great privilege to do it, and it's voluntary. So no one makes you do it, but it's tough.
Your legacy has also been defined by some prominent people, and I thought we could start with your wife, Cherie. How did moving into number 10 challenge your relationship?
I'm not sure it particularly challenged our relationship because we were a very strong family, but when you are Prime Minister, it's a bit of a distracting job. So, it's bound to put a certain strain, and for someone like her, who's a career woman, and not used to the media at all, it was, quite a big change.
And she's also a very outspoken person. I mean, she has been called a loose cannon. Were you always
it's usually well directed, actually.
But could that be a problem for you, or is this something you
it's
always appreciated?
I think it's one of the other things about politics today, which is that people, you want personalities, right? Because no one wants politicians that are kind of colourless and grey. At the same time, when you get a personality in politics, everyone goes, "Oh my goodness,"
You had become Prime Minister, you had moved into number 10, and then you decided this is the time to have another baby.
Decide as a... well, I'm not quite sure about decide, but yeah, we had another baby.
How come is that? It was an accident.
Well, I don't know about accident, but,
But could you spend a lot of time with a baby? I mean, is that something...
well, it's difficult.
If I were a Prime Minister, I don't know if I could listen, in a way,
I remember shortly after, months after he was born, because he was born in the year 2000, we took him to the P5 Security Council of the UN, because he'd just been born, and we had him with us in New York, and I've got a great picture of Bill Clinton, Jacques Chirac, and Leo in their arms, like this, and with all the other leaders around. So, no, it was fabulous to have a baby in Downing Street.
Another person who contributed to sort of define you in the early days is Diana.
Yeah.
Or as you put it in your book, you were a sucker for a beautiful princess.
Well, I think everyone is, aren't they? But it's... No, it was one of these very strange things because, obviously I knew Princess Diana reasonably well, and I thought very, very highly of her when she died, and then I said those words, and obviously we had to manage the process after her death.
The People's Princess. You named her the People's Princess.
And the strange thing is, of all the things I've done, including all the difficult things, Iraq and Afghanistan and 9/11 and all the public service reforms, but I've still got people who basically remember that.
What did you two have in common?
She was brilliant at understanding and getting on with people. She wasn't party political in any way at all. If she'd been running for office, even Bill Clinton would have had to watch out. She was brilliant at walking into a room of people, bringing them on side.
But you're right that you both were manipulative.
I know, this has caused some shock, that a politician admits they're manipulative. Come on. Look, as I also say, however, she was somebody for whom, however she handled people and managed them, it came from a deep conviction. She was actually a remarkable person. And that was what, in a sense, gave her that ability to shape people's emotions.
But you see yourself as manipulative as well?
Well, look, all politicians are to an extent. It's one of these things. People always say they want politicians to be honest about things, then you're honest about them, and they say, oh my God, I never knew politicians ever manipulated people. It's a shock. It's ridiculous. Of course, you're in that business in a sense, but that doesn't define what you're about.
Did you see the movie The Queen?
I never saw the movie The Queen.
I've never seen it?
No, I've never seen it.
But you're portrayed in it.
I'm portrayed in it. My wife's seen it. My kids have seen it. But the reason is, when the Queen, the movie, first came out, I had my weekly audience with the Queen. Not the film, the Queen, right? The real thing. And so we have a weekly audience sitting like this. And she said to me, she said, I hear there's a film. And I said, yes, I think so. She said, about us, she said. I said, yes, I think that's true, Your Majesty. She said, I just want you to know that I won't be watching it. So there was a little long silence, and she said, will you? I said, well, no, all right. So I haven't. So I've never watched it.
Maybe when you're old.
Yeah,
you can watch it. It's quite good, actually.
Yeah, that's when I'm in the US nowadays, people, you get people come up to you and say, oh, I did like you in that movie. And it's, it's better than some of the other films about me, so anyway.
Diana were known for her loneliness. When were your loneliest moments?
I think you live from the moment you become Prime Minister with a certain sense of loneliness. And sometimes that is most acute when you're taking really difficult decisions. But it's always there. Because you are the final decision maker, and you do realise that in the end, ultimately, you decide. And that is a lonely position.
And especially, of course, when sending troops to war, like Kosovo, Iraq.
Kosovo,
that must
Iraq.
be a terrible, lonely experience.
Yeah, and I first had it in respect to Kosovo. And then also actually with Bill Clinton first in respect of Iraq, and then in Sierra Leone, which is the first time we actually lost a soldier in a mission that I authorized.
How important was Bill Clinton as not only an ally but a friend?
He was a political soulmate very much, and then he was a huge ally at the time of Kosovo, because without Bill Clinton, we couldn't have done that. And the history of the Balkans and the position of the Balkans today would be very different without it.
But is he more flamboyant and more out?
He taught me many lessons, actually, as a leader. And one I remember very particularly was when I hadn't been long Prime Minister, and we went to one of these summits where, in this particular country, what they often do, particularly in the Far East, is they put out their national costume for you, and you're asked to wear it to the official dinner, to make a big thing for the country. And I remember going to my room where the summit was, and there were sort of 4 shirts laid out on the bed in this national costume, and the first was absolutely horrible, hideous. And they got progressively worse until the last one was, unbelievable. So anyway, I thought, what am I going to do? So I put on the first, which was bad, but not as bad as the rest. So I go into the reception, and I see Bill, and he's in the worst. Right, so I go up to him and say, Bill, that shirt, it's terrible. And he says, yep. And I said, so why do you choose that one? And he said to me, well, you see, when my folks back home see me in this shirt, it's so bad that they're going to say, there's our nice Mr. President being friendly to all those foreign folks. And they're going to think more of me for that. He said, but when your folk back home see you in that shirt, they may just think you chose it. So it's a great, it's one of the, he's a very quick as well. He's amazingly quick-witted. I remember when I was leader of the opposition, I went to see him at the White House, and this was a big deal for me, okay, because I hadn't won my election. It was just before his presidential election in 1996, so I was very eager to be well treated in the White House and so on. So we go into the Oval Room, we're sitting just like this, and the media all come in these waves when you sit in the Oval Office with the president and his guest. And so one of our journalists shouts at Bill Clinton, are you sitting next to the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom? So it's a really difficult question.
That's a hard question.
It's a hard question, right? Because if he says yes, he's interfered in our politics. If he says no, he's dissed me. So he says, because his election's just coming up, he says, I just hope he's sitting next to the next President of the United States. Now that's...
You were actually in the White House as the Monica Lewinsky story broke out with Cherie. Was that like a huge elephant in the room? Or could you talk about it? I mean, could you discuss it as couples?
It wasn't exactly the elephant in the room. I mean, it was pretty clear it was...
but could you discuss it like in private?
No, of course, but I was absolutely clear that I was going to stand by him.
This would not be a kind of chat you would have with George Bush anyway, I believe. So
no, people. Look, you end up with caricatures as people as politicians. I mean, this is something you can never say to a European audience because they just look at you aghast, astonished, and
what
upset.
is that? What is it? What is it Europeans hasn't understood about George Bush? What did Europeans miss? Because sometimes it seems like you're the only person who really got him on this side of the Atlantic.
Look, he's very much from an American style of politics, and the Europeans find that jarring a bit. Bill Clinton and Barack Obama can talk our language in a way. The thing about George is that he's, you said that you can't imagine ever having that conversation with him. Actually, as a person, you would find him very, very easy to get on with.
Do you still have a lot of contact?
I keep in contact with him for sure. Yeah, and he's got his own book coming out.
I know. Are you excited about that?
He's very funny about it. Actually, he said to me the other day. He said, "Well, most people think I can't read a book, so it'll be a surprise when I write one." So, look, it's the decisions that have been taken after September the 11th, I think, do rank and will rank amongst the most difficult. And I think there's still a lot of history to be written in and around all of this.
Speaking of that, some viewers will watch this and react to me sitting here chatting with what they call a war criminal. Being